I'm Mahdi Shaheeb Sher. My website is www.mahdishaheebsher.com. I think one of my interests in the world as Mahdi Shaheeb Sher is the Good Friday Agreement. I think we've lost the Good Friday Agreement under Prime Minister Rishi Sunak when he was in power as Prime Minister a few years ago. I think he took some decisions with kind of the Irish border and the Brexit arrangements that were in place that kind of created problems with the conditions surrounding the Good Friday Agreement. And I think because of the issue with the Irish border and the Brexit, I think we kind of lost the Good Friday Agreement. I think it was recorded in the media and the press. A lot of the world leaders, like Bill Clinton and Tony Blair, commented on the arrangements around the Good Friday Agreement following Brexit. And I think that because of the issues surrounding the Irish border, I think it's unfortunate that we have lost the Good Friday Agreement. I think the Good Friday Agreement took 30 years to negotiate with a lot of the world leaders around the world. It's very important for the consensus it provides in the world with world leaders and the Irish-British problem. I think the Good Friday Agreement took 30 years to negotiate, but it provided peace between Ireland and Great Britain. I think this stopped a lot of the IRA terrorism in Great Britain, but the peace that resulted in the Good Friday Agreement is quite important to the relations between Great Britain and other countries such as Europe and America. So I think that there is an issue surrounding the Good Friday Agreement. I think there's a lot of public information about this, and that there has been a lot of talk in the media about it as well. I think now that we've lost the Good Friday Agreement, there's a risk that terrorism could return to Great Britain with the IRA and with Ireland. I think there's already tensions being displayed between Ireland and Great Britain. I think that that's reflected in maybe some of the negotiations that have occurred between the DUP and Great Britain. But certainly the First Minister of Northern Ireland has had some hostile provocations from Ireland as well. But I think with the current Prime Minister of Ireland and the situation in Ireland, I think there is maybe a likelihood and a chance of violence returning to England and the United Kingdom with the breakdown of the Good Friday Agreement. So I think one of the issues around the Good Friday Agreement is to ask the question as to exactly what's happened with it. I think it was something to do with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who was Prime Minister of Great Britain at the time. I think there was some issue surrounding Brexit and the Irish border that meant that the legal framework supporting the Good Friday Agreement collapsed and it was no longer valid. So I think that the Good Friday Agreement is no longer valid, and as a result, I think there is more violence between Ireland and Great Britain. I think it is noticeable at this stage on a smaller level, but I think the main concern is the relationship between Ireland and Great Britain and the repercussions and effects it's had with the relationship between Great Britain and Europe. I think that's very sensitive and volatile at the moment. And the same can be said about Great Britain's relationship with the United States of America. I think it's also very volatile and sensitive and maybe violent as well. I think America is very concerned and very disturbed about the situation between Ireland and Great Britain. I think Great Britain could be seen as being maybe aggressive towards Ireland, but certainly the Irish, I think, are sensitive about the situation. And I think the question is, what can you do once you've lost the Good Friday Agreement, especially if it's taken 30 years to negotiate with a lot of leaders around the world who had to do a lot to commit to it. And I think now that we've lost it, we've probably lost it permanently. And there needs to be some questions in the media or in discussion tables about what Great Britain is going to do around the world now. What is it going to do in Europe? What is it going to do in America? And particularly, how is it going to treat Ireland, and what is its level of friendship? What is its level of friendship with Ireland? Ireland is an important member of the European Union now, so that's obviously an important consideration. I think when you have the European Union on Great Britain's back door, then it does involve the European Union in these disputes of violence and terrorism. I think that's what they are, disputes of violence and terrorism. So I think Ireland as an EU member does complicate things as well, and it does involve the United States and the European Union. But it's not very good for Great Britain to have to be aggressive like this in the world, to take a very withdrawn step from the European Union and the world because of its interests, political interests in Brexit. I think if Great Britain was responsible, then it would also deal with its commitments to the European Union and its commitments to the United States of America, and it would just not think about its own political interests with Brexit. There is an important question as to why Brexit is so important to the British government. I think it's mainly the British government that find it important. I think if you look at the public opinion in Great Britain, most of the public don't care much about Brexit because they're quite happy and satisfied with the Labour government for 20 years. So I think that's why they're not too concerned about Brexit. I think if the people are quite relatively content and satisfied with the Labour policies and politics we've had for 20 years, then Brexit, I think, is maybe some kind of self-interest that Britain has adopted. Maybe because of its kind of trade disputes with the EU, or maybe its special relationship with the United States of America. I think that's what Great Britain expects from America, a special relationship from America. And I think there is some grievance because it doesn't feel respected with that. So I think we have those issues. And I think in terms of the British economy, it's not doing well as it has been doing, with maybe the prosperity we're seeing in the European Union. I think Great Britain has followed the example of Spain when Spain exited from the European Union, and it's followed the example of Greece when Greece exited from Europe. So I think Great Britain as an economy has kind of gone back into the dark ages like Spain and Greece. It's taken a big hit with its economy. It's been downgraded, and it's kind of a very depressed economy. There were positive notes in how it could maybe pick itself up with its own independent trade relations throughout the world. But I think the reality of the situation is that it has taken a big hit with its economy. That could be due to austerity and the banking crisis and the global oil supplies. It could also be to do with Britain's involvement in the Ukraine war. Britain at the moment is the most proactive member of Europe to be involved in the Ukraine war, and that seems slightly absurd. I think if you look at all of the commitment that Great Britain has placed in Ukraine, it probably outweighs France and Germany as separate countries. So Great Britain is taking a lead in the Ukraine war on behalf of Europe and maybe on behalf of itself. And I think that is causing concern and nervousness, because I think war isn't very positive for the global economy. We've had issues with the grain shortages in Ukraine. We've also had the Black Sea issue with the port of Odessa, which has created some kind of a problem. We've had other issues like fuel. I think we've seen kind of fuel come down a lot in its price as well, and that could be creating some kind of artificial inflation. I don't know. But the point is, people are spending a lot now, and I don't think they're earning as much to support that expenditure. So I think we are in a fragile sense in the world, because we are seeing a lot of war in the world, with Americans' military aggression in the Taiwan Straits. We're seeing China's conflict with Japan and its aggressive military moves in Japan. We're obviously seeing the Israel war as well and the Ukraine war. We've also seen kind of the Syria war or the ISIS issues. And I think that the current climate of war and regional conflict in the world is developing a lot of fear, concern and nervousness. And I think that that's one of the things that has to be done with world leaders. Unfortunately, I don't think most of these world leaders are reliable. We have President Macron, who seems to be a bit of an idiot. We have President Putin, who seems to be a deranged lunatic, and is now a war criminal as well. We have President Trump, who seems to be a billionaire, stupid person, and that's never good as well. And I think we do have a lot of the world leaders who are perhaps self-interested and corrupt. I don't think they have the best interests of their countries, of their people in mind, because they kind of appreciate the distressed condition of the world. So I think they've taken a very corrupt line, and they've become corrupt Chinese politicians instead of the reliable leaders that we normally expect. I think there needs to be more concerted action with things like NATO, the United Nations and the G7. I think these rogue nations from Africa and South America, like Brazil, Venezuela and maybe Chile, and maybe rogue nations like Nigeria, who are involved in oil supplies as well, Nigeria and maybe Sudan as well. And then of course we have maybe Tunisia as well. I think these rogue nations are creating a lot of regional conflict in the world, which is causing problems for normal everyday people and the quality of life that they expect to lead. So we do have these problems with some of these countries, and it includes Burma as well. I think we've got a lot of instability and violence and conflict in Burma at the moment, and I think we have other places as well. We have Yemen in the Middle East, and that's particularly sensitive and violent at the moment. So I think that we do have lots of countries now who've become very unstable and very violent, and it is creating a lot of regional conflict. So I think that's one of the interests in the world at the moment. So that's my view about that and the Good Friday Agreement. Thank you.